anybody out there with a dream on, keep chasing it, and you really have no idea what can happen when you approach it with grit, hard work, and perseverance and a little luck.
What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? Nathan and Alan here. We are your Heel brothers. And Alan, today we have a special guest. This is, honestly, this was one of my favorite players to watch coming in at North Carolina basketball a couple of years ago while he was here. He has his own book named Dream On. It's From Backyard to Biscuits, a Tar Heel basketball tale. Alan, we have the one and only Jackson Watkins with us today. Jackson, what's going on, brother?
Hey, good morning. That was a over the top intro, but no, I appreciate it.
No, man,
really
that doesn't even give it credit, bro. That doesn't even give you all the credit in the world that you deserve. A two-time biscuit getter, and just stud, man, and now an author.
Yeah.
The only one to shoot 100% from the three-point line in 23 season on UNC's team, by the way.
Yeah, wow. When you put it like that, I mean,
come on, baby. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about, dude.
It was actually funny. I was putting, you'll see in the book, there's like the first couple pages are just the stat line from both years, and I threw in the effective field goal percentage just if people were interested in seeing who was leading.
That's it, man. You gotta toot the horn. You gotta toot your own horn every once in a while,
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
one shot attempt on the year, got to make it count.
That's it.
You did, dude. You did. That's that's absolutely awesome, dude. We've been clamoring for some biscuits again from North Carolina basketball this season, man. But dude, I want to talk to you a little bit today. We want to get to that book, man, because I'm really excited to get into this thing, and I've been seeing some bits and pieces of it online and reading it. And I told you off air, but dude, you're a heck of a writer. Put you that way. That is for sure. And this is a story in which, I people that grow up, not everybody can be a D1 athlete. Not everybody can. And you hear this, you see this story of somebody that wanted to live the dream of playing at North Carolina, and you got to do that. And to see it, as somebody that played the role at Carolina that you did, this is a really cool story, dude. Tell me where the inspiration to write this book came from and the message that you're trying to send through it.
Yeah, I think the inspiration sort of came from a number of places. As I made the team and as I had that, incredible first year experience. Yeah, like as I made the team and as we went to the Final Four and eventually the national championship, in the back of my mind, it was like, wow, this is just a pretty incredible 8-month turnaround in my life. It would be cool to sort of put this into words and share this story, especially just given I grew up a diehard Tar Heel. My mom went to school at UNC and my uncle went there, and I have a bunch of other family members. So I really did grow up, idolizing Heels and wanted to make the team. And I think to your point, like when that dream came to fruition, I realized, this could be an inspirational tale to a kid who I once was. So I think that's sort of the impetus for writing it. And I think for like actually executing on the story, I think as soon as I started graduating, I just started writing as many of the experiences and memories that I could. Because, I think with time it fades pretty quickly. So I wanted to write down as many things as I could. And in my 2 years on the team, I would, if we had a special moment or a special experience, no matter how small it may seem, I would try and write it down just so I could look back on it and remember it. So, and then I think lastly, like it's always been on my bucket list to write a book. I never knew, what it would be about. But as I graduated, I sort of realized this would be sort of a perfect story to tell. And hopefully it's inspirational enough to, hopefully change someone's life, whether it's on the basketball front or elsewhere. So that was sort of the genesis of writing it.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome tale, man.
That's good answer.
Absolutely, dude. And stuff like that, absolutely, and it impacts people. These are the books that young teenagers are reading that you never know you can inspire with these things as well, man. Talk about a little bit of your time at North Carolina. How did you get onto the team? How what was that process like for you? What door opened up for you to have that opportunity to be able to join the team?
It was anything but straightforward. It was a winding path, a lot of obstacles, a lot of turns that I wasn't expecting. And to your point about, not everybody can be a D1 athlete. Like I certainly was not one coming out of high school. I was definitely recruited at the Division 3 level primarily. And a lot of the schools I was talking to were small, sort of high academic institutions in the Northeast. So it wasn't exactly what I was looking for in a college experience. I sort of wanted that big university feel, whether it was a UNC, a UVA, a Boston College. And obviously, those are top tier powerhouse Division 1 programs. So it was sort of a twofold path. Like I'm either going to go the Division 3 route, go to a school very small, people probably haven't heard of it, and keep getting to play competitive basketball, or go the Division 1 route, maybe take a small chance at a walk-on spot, but certainly no guarantees. So it was a really tough decision, honestly, because basketball had been, part of who I was and part of my life for as long as I could remember. But I eventually ended up choosing to go, the big university route, have that huge college experience, which I was really excited about. Um, but at the same time, it was a little bit sad because I was coming out of high school, like, wow, like, are my competitive playing days over?
Yeah.
But I also knew just from being a Carolina fan about the JV program at UNC. So once I decided to go to UNC, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to try out. It's going to be competitive. I might not make it. There's no guarantees, but it was at least that route that I had in mind. So once I got to UNC, that was definitely in my list of goals, my freshman year to try out and make the team. But my career actually started on the women's team because I helped out their scout team like right when I got to campus. So, and this is part of the book, but I played against this kid growing up in Virginia, and his dad was an assistant on the women's team, and I ran into him like my first couple days on campus, and he was like, "Hey, like come help the scout team for the women's team." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, like sure." And it was basically like 4 or 5 guys who we would help essentially just scrimmage and run drills and play dummy defense against the girls, and help them out, basically like a scout team for them. So I actually did that for about a month before trying out for the JV team, which was a lot of fun. And then JV tryouts rolled around. It was pretty difficult. There were a bunch of people trying out, and fortunately enough, after a couple tryouts and then sort of a week of like a tryout practice format, made the team alongside Dewey Ferris and Rob Landry. I live with Rob in New York now, so but the three of us made it, and we had a standout freshman year. We won a lot of games, scored a lot, and obviously it was a dream in itself, sort of getting to play in the Dean Dome, even though it's in front of friends and family. But getting to run out the tunnel and play on the Dean Dome court, even for the JV team, was a dream in itself, and it really made my freshman year a great year and a great season. So that was sort of the process to getting to the JV team. And then unfortunately, we had played our last game of the year, and then that's when COVID hit, and we were all sent home. And suddenly, my college, not just college experience, but basketball career was sort of on the line. And then over that year, just over my sophomore year, just kept working out, kept getting shots up at outdoor courts, running sprints as much as I could. And then fortunately, my junior year rolled around and they announced that they'd be holding an open varsity tryout. Rob and I worked our tails off to prep for that. And we were invited back for sort of a 10-day type of deal where they just threw us into practice, which was pretty crazy. And somehow after 10 days didn't get cut. So that was sort of the story of how I got there. Yeah.
That is awesome, bro.
From JV to walk on. That's crazy. and if I'm not mistaken, the the JV team they don't do that anymore. So that being an important role,
Yeah.
how does UNC go about getting kids like a Rob Landry, a Jackson Watkins that need that opportunity to maybe grow in the JV system in order to maybe be a better player to walk on for the varsity team later in their life?
Yeah, it's a great question, and honestly, unfortunately, I think the sad part is there's not that pipeline anymore. The NCAA now has roster caps at 15 people. So if we're being totally honest, my 2 years I wouldn't have been on the team because we had I think 17 and 18 my 2 years. So as I look back and reflect, and honestly, this book was a way of reflecting on my experience, but as I look back, I sort of got in there at a very fortunate time. It was right before these new limits, right before they expanded the number of scholarships. So the sort of role of non-scholarship traditional walk-on, I think, is pretty much gone. I think if you were on the team before the limits were put in place, you can still be on the team. So you're almost like grandfathered in. So some teams, can still have more than 15 for now. But I think going forward, the sort of this type of story is not going to be as prevalent. Certainly at UNC, just given there's not the JV pipeline. I think historically there have been a ton of guys who have started on JV and then gotten pulled up. We have a reunion next weekend. We decided to send an email we worked with the basketball office to get a list of all the guys who played JV and eventually got pulled up to varsity, and we emailed everybody, and this includes people from the walk-ons from the 90s and the 2000s, which is pretty cool. So
That's awesome.
we're trying to do that every year. So that's next weekend. But essentially, there's this long list of people who've gone that path and gone that route, and unfortunately, with the JV team no longer around, that experience is going to be harder to get for most people.
And that's extremely sad because you hear people of working their way up, man. Because it's it's amazing to see, especially nowadays, especially with the transfer portal. You see people coming from a guy that sticks out in my mind, a guy like a Jared Verse, who comes from an Albany and comes to Florida State and is now a big time player with the Los Angeles Rams. Elijah Huzzy comes to North Carolina for the football team last year, a couple of seasons ago, from East Tennessee State, and these guys are working their way up. And you said you were in the Division III route, and you were heavily recruited Division III, but then you decided to walk on, and to be able to see the process of being able to work your way up to getting some minutes at the D1 level. I mean, you never know what could happen there, and to seeing those opportunities snuffed out, and a really cool program in the JV program, which is cool. Like you said, even though you may be playing in front of friends and family, walking through that tunnel, being able to run through it, go play out there on the Dean Dome court. Me and Alan have talked many times about how, man, if we could just go out there and just shoot one jump shot, just one, just give me one, brick or make, I don't care. That would just be amazing. And to see that thing gone is, it's saddening. It really is. And I'm curious to your point, when you went to Carolina and you went there, and you decided to go there to school, was that in the back of your mind of just JV? Like I'm going to get to JV and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Because especially right when I got on campus, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. So I have a bunch of family in North Carolina, but all my high school friends, they were going to UVA and Virginia Tech, and I was the only kid from my high school, from my grade, to go to UNC. So, coming in, it was a new place, new people. But beyond that, it was definitely in the back of my mind to try out for JV once October rolled around. But I do think in those first couple of months, it was it was a shock, honestly. Okay, without basketball, who am I? And I think going through that transition, even just for a couple of months in between, graduating high school and being an all conference player in high school to not playing at all to eventually playing JV, it was a wake up call of okay, I need to sort of reevaluate who I am without it. Unfortunately, I think I found myself through that process and through getting back into basketball via the JV program. Um, but it was sort of a difficult path, but it was definitely on my mind to make the JV team. And then I was basically like, let's go from there. If I can eventually walk on, if I can, play well on the JV team, be a leader, be what they're looking for. Hopefully one day I'll be able to walk on. And that was the mentality. Like every practice I would get there early, shoot after practice, get more shots up. On off days we were in there doing conditioning or getting like a ball handling workout in or getting more shots up. So once I made the JV team, it was still very much like, okay, we're still working for this walk-on spot. And that was, I say that for myself, but also, those other guys like Dewey and Rob.
And what I love about this entire story is the fact that, and we'll flesh this thing out as more as we go here, but the work ethic you have to be able to do what you and guys like Rob did. It takes a lot of willpower and humility and ego aside, and just screw it, no to the grindstone. I'm going to work this thing out and we're going to get to where we want to go. Alan, go ahead.
All right, Jackson. Take me back. January 29th, 2022. You steal the ball. You get fouled. 30 some odd seconds left. 99 points are on the board. You got 2 chances. What's the thought process?
There weren't many thoughts in my head at that moment in time. If I'm being totally honest. Well, you skipped over the fact that I went in for a layup with 97 and got absolutely blocked out of the wazoo. And
I wasn't going to mention it.
Nah, it's you got to mention the whole story because I think this is a good point because like Dewey cleaned up the board. I got blocked so bad it went straight to Dewey, and he got the layup. So I think without that, it definitely would have been possible. But as soon as I stole the ball from that guy and I got fouled, immediately I understood like, okay, I'm gonna have 2 shots for 100. But honestly, the one thought that was sort of at the forefront of my brain was, right over there is Michael Jordan, and he's watching.
That's awesome.
Because it was the 1982 celebration game, I guess, because it was 40 years later, and it was also Roy Williams Day. We're playing NC State, big time rival, afternoon game, so the stadium's packed. Families are in town. Out of towners have driven in. But beyond that, I think really I was concerned about MJ watching it. I wasn't thinking about Biscuits at all. It was really like Michael Jordan's watching it. And funny enough,
the man that's afraid of a free throw these days.
yeah, exactly. And I knew this is gonna sound bad, but like I knew I was gonna miss the first one. Like there was no doubt in my mind. I walked up there, I was shaking, my legs were numb. Like I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to miss the first one. And it was bad. Like it was not a very close miss. It was a brick. And, but as soon as I missed it, I was like, okay, I got that one out of my system. Like as soon as I missed it, I was like, okay, there is no doubt in my mind that I'm going to make this one. Like I would have bet my life on it. So after I got fouled, it was a really interesting moment because it was scary. Like I knew I was sort of bound to this moment in time. Like I'm either gonna, get Biscuits or not. I'm either gonna make a free throw in front of MJ or not. So it was scary, but I think to sort of the essence of the story, like my whole life had sort of led to it. So that's what gave me that confidence to make the second one.
Yeah, if like I feel like if you had missed both, MJ would probably find you after the game and be like, come on, man. But since you made it, it's just like, yeah, he's just gonna leave. He's gonna leave. No congratulations, good job, dude. But if you'd have missed both, he'd have found you in the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually funny. I had not really thought about that. But I was doing another interview to talk about the book, and they said the same exact thing because I was like, like that actually does make sense that he would have for sure found me if I had missed both. So I don't know. Sometimes I think about how my life would be different if I had missed that second one. But would I be hated around North Carolina for not
Oh,
getting
jeez.
biscuits? Like, would I be booed coming out of the tunnel? Like, But luckily, I didn't have to live that reality. So
Yeah, luckily, Jesus Christ, that
I mean,
I didn't even think about it that hard. Holy smokes.
I mean, think about it. Think about it. This dude got put in a position, 2 free throws, one to get to 100 for Biscuits, but also think about all the UNC greats that are sitting there watching him. That's amazing. That is awesome, bro.
it was nerve wracking. Yeah,
North Carolina thumped State that day.
yeah.
That's always a great day. I mean, that's just more insult to injury to them. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's just me. But I want to talk to once you came up from JV, once you got the walk-on spot, how big of a difference is it walking from JV to all of a sudden, hey Hubert Davis, how you doing? And you're running with RJ and League and Mondo and the crew.
Yeah, it's a huge jump. And JV, like I was playing, I was a starter my freshman year, but honestly, that was probably the most competitive ball that I was playing. And I went to a really competitive high school. We actually played against Mondo in high school, and his team had like 3 or 4 D1 guys in their starting lineup, and I played alongside a few D1 guys. So I went to a pretty competitive high school and conference, but playing JV was easily the most competitive experience because we were playing, D3 schools, community colleges. The best teams we played were like high school prep teams. So we played Rob Dillingham when he was at Combine Academy, and he torched me. But that jump to the next level was crazy. And luckily, after the varsity tryout, um, like the open varsity tryout, Coach Fred called me and was like, "Hey, like, why don't you come watch practice for the next couple of days, and then you'll jump in on Friday." And I was like, "Jump in," and I was like, "Okay, like we're going from 0 to 100 pretty quick here." But those 2 days of watching practice, it was like just trying to get acclimated to the speed and physicality because even though JV was a jump from high school, I mean, varsity was an even bigger jump from JV. So I think trying to adjust as quickly as possible to that athleticism jump was the biggest thing.
Mhm.
And even though I had been running sprint and conditioning and was in like decent shape, you couldn't really get prepared for that except for just jumping in. So as soon as we jumped in on Friday, it was like literally just trying to survive, keep your head above water. And suddenly I was having to guard these All-Americans and Caleb and RJ. And it was pretty cool though, because like obviously like when I'm practicing, when I'm in a drill, like I'm locked in on the drill, but every time I'm like on the sideline or coach is explaining something, I'm like in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, I'm really here. Like I grew up, the last couple of years I've been watching these guys play on TV, and now I'm trying to be their teammates. And it's funny, the first practice I like walked up to start stretching with the guys and everything, and Leaky came up to me and it was like, "Hey, I'm Leaky." I'm like, "Dude, I know," like I know who you are.
Hey, I'm
But
like,
yeah, I mean, those guys are great, and it was an adjustment. Like I got blown by. I'll admit it. I got blown by a lot in transition during those 10 days, but as I got up to speed, I found myself getting quicker, getting better, and eventually was able to put myself in a position to guard them every once in a while and keep them from scoring, although they still scored a lot. But it was a big jump.
So it was trial by fire.
Yes, for sure.
That's awesome, dude. I got to think because you're probably guarding RJ, right?
Yep.
How shifty is that kid?
He is shifty, and I'll be the first to admit it. I was put on my ass a few times.
I love it.
Yeah, and he was just like, because Caleb and RJ are great players. Like they're both very hard to guard, and I think Caleb's physicality is what I struggle with because like he's not as shifty. He's still shifty, as a guard, but not quite as shifty as RJ. But his physicality was the one that would always get me. Like if he put his head down and drove at me, taking that bump was what I had to adjust to. Whereas RJ was like, okay, I'm gonna just try and guess where you're going because if I try and react, I'm gonna get my ankles broken. So I came to understand how to best guard those guys over time, but it was a struggle at times, but I think I got better, as the season went on.
What's the emotions like when the coaches, I don't know, if they sit you down, they tell you, "Hey, welcome to the team," or what is that like?
Yeah, it was a special moment, and it came at the end of sort of the 10-day tryout window. And Coach Fred, who was Rob and I's JV coach our freshman year, he sort of pulled us aside with Coach Davis under one of the baskets, and Coach Davis was essentially just like, you guys have done a really good job over the last couple of weeks. We've appreciated you guys, everything you're bringing to the team. Would love if you stayed around. And I was like, yeah, you don't have to ask me twice. Like, I'm
Right.
in. Let's do it. And sort of that was that moment. And honestly, it didn't feel real in that moment. It felt like I was definitely sort of in a state of shock. Like, okay, wow, like I'm on the team now. But it really didn't hit me until later that night when I was, I had talked to my mom and told my dad, and they were over the moon. But it really didn't hit me till I talked to my high school coach, who he's been a mentor for me, since I started working out with him and then playing for him in high school. But I called him and I was like, hey man, like I got some news. And he's like, hit me. And I was like, I made the team. And he was super pumped, but he said something that stuck with me. And honestly, I think it sort of inspired me to write this book. He said, it's very rare that anybody gets to live out their childhood dream, and you're getting to do just that.
Mm.
And I think that sort of put it into perspective very quickly, about like the moment of making the team. And I think that word, like that dream word, it's hard to explain it in any other way. Like, I dreamed of playing in the Dean Dome for UNC. We would come to games and I'd run down to the court before the game started just to watch the guys shoot around. Um, I always dreamed of that. And I think when my high school coach put it that way, I think it really made me appreciate, not just the moment of making the team, but also over my 2 years, really appreciate every single experience, the ups, the downs, the wins, the losses, all of it. So I think that was an emotional day, but that was sort of the most emotional moment, especially since he had given me a lot of opportunities to play at the Division III level. And he knew, you know, it was always my dream to play at UNC. So I think calling him was probably the biggest, most emotional moment.
Dream on. That's the name of the book right there. Dream on. And that's an amazing thing, man. You hear people living out their dreams and everything, and that's wild. Because when you're a kid, man, you think of the most craziest things in the world. And when you're little, they seem sometimes insurmountable. How do you climb that mountaintop? And for the people that make it, like yourself, I can only imagine as to that feeling. And I'm sure it had to be amazing. Here's the thing, man. You came in at a very big transition for North Carolina. Your first year is the first year under Hubert Davis, right? And this is, Roy surprisingly retires. He did the most Roy thing in the world. Nobody told nobody, no farewell tour. He said, "Hey, it's my time. Time for me to go." And it was emotional, man. What was that? I mean, I know you were JV moving up to varsity, but what was that transition like within the Deanie Smith Center? Like, what was that like?
Yeah,
For
yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, people didn't believe it when Coach Williams retired. I mean, it was on April 1st, which maybe didn't help, but
yeah,
like it had been like he was Carolina basketball in my mind and in everybody's mind. So I think that was a shock to everybody. And honestly, I think it was probably an omen sort of across the college basketball world of the new era that we are entering. We have some of the greatest coaches of all time, hanging them up for the last time, whether it's Coach Williams, Coach K, Jay Wright, all these legendary coaches sort of hanging it up. Um, just given the dynamics of NIL and the transfer portal. So it was sort of the start. I feel like it was sort of the start of that new era. And it definitely wasn't just a transitional period for me in my career. But definitely, to your point, there were a lot of question marks around Carolina. But I think Coach Davis, I mean, he's an incredible coach. I love playing for him, and unfortunately, I didn't play for him on JV, but he was, I think he coached a number of years before my year. So I played for Coach Fred on JV, but I think he was a huge supporter of the program. A lot of my teammates had played for him, like my older teammates on JV had played for him on JV, and everybody knew he was, he would ride or die with the program. And I think that's what the school was looking for in a coach. And, coming in playing for him was exceptional. Like he gave me my childhood dream. So I'll forever be indebted to him for that. But also he's just like an incredible person, incredible human to be around, very uplifting. He always sees the bigger picture. He prides himself on teaching us life lessons. So, we would have thoughts of the day before every practice. And I think you'll see throughout the book, I try to incorporate a lot of those lessons. So, I'll forever be indebted to him, but it was a huge shift. Those are big shoes to fill, coming after Coach Williams. So there were a lot of shifts. Unfortunately, I can't, tell you exactly what the differences were because I wish I'd played for Coach Williams for a year, but I can't compare and contrast. But I know it was definitely a period of change.
And I want to talk a little bit more about Hubert Davis really quick, but I want to use a quote out of here from this book. Really quickly that you added in. This is during a part of the chapter 1, I believe it is here, where he's talking. It's in a film session. He's talking about the effort, energy that Puff brought, Puff Johnson, and he says, in this is a quote from the book here. He says, Coach Davis yelled, "It's not about if your number is called. It's about if you're ready when your number is called." Well, now my number was being called. Tell me what it was like when your number got called for the first time. Hubert Davis saying, "Jackson, time to go, brother." What was that moment like for you? And you knew you were getting ready to step on the court in a real game. This is the big boys right here. What was that like?
Yeah, it was incredible. And I believe it was Elon, my junior year. We had played, in an exhibition game, but that was against like a D2 school, and we had played for a couple of minutes. It was a blowout. So, and again, it didn't count. So, to your point, like we were checking in for real this time, and I think it was in the last couple of minutes. The walk-ons got put in, and that was really a crazy feeling. I think Coach Fred, walked down the sideline, and it's funny in the final minutes of a blowout game or a game that we're handling business, we'll start getting nervous. At least I will. I think I can speak for the walk-ons or the end of the bench, but usually we're chattering throughout the game, maybe throwing some jokes around. But at the end of a blowout, it gets a little quiet. The palms start sweating. The knees start bouncing because you're wondering, like, are we going to get in? When are we going to get in? But I think in that Elon game, we were like, okay, we're definitely going to get thrown in. And we did with a couple minutes left. And it was really just like a pure adrenaline shot. And, we have all our warm-ups on. So like as soon as they pointed us to go to the scores table, we're like scrambling to take off our warm-ups and jog up the sideline and tuck our jerseys in. As well as like figure out whose ball it is and who we're subbing in for and everything. So, but I think generally like subbing in, the whole crowd wants to see the walk-ons like do something other than clap on the sideline. So like we could probably dribble the ball off our foot out of bounds and they'd still cheer. But coming in was just it was pure adrenaline, and all the nerves sort of vanish once you're out there. Like you might be nervous like on the bench when you're gonna get in, but for me, as soon as I got out there, it was like adrenaline coursing through me. Let me just try and make something happen. And in that Elon game, we came in and it was a free throw, or Elon was shooting a free throw. And so I was lined up on the free throw line across from Rob. And, I told him like, hey, like I'll box out the shooter in case the ball, comes right back to him. And of course, the ball went straight back to him, and I stepped in to get the rebound and totally slipped and fell, but the ball landed right in my lap. I was like, "Damn, like, I haven't been doing anything for 2 hours on the sideline. I come in and look like the biggest idiot there is." But,
Still got credited with the board though.
I got the rebound, and, so I, like, got the rebound, passed it, and as we were coming down the floor, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about our exhibition game because I had held the ball at the top of the key because we were up by like 30 or 40. So I didn't want to run up the score or anything. And the whole bench and everybody in the stadium was like, shoot it. They started like yelling to shoot it. So then after like 5 to 10 seconds of holding the ball, then I decided to do something and like lost the ball or something. And in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, like we're not dribbling out the clock here. Like that's not what we're doing. And so uh, as we went down on offense, I caught the ball and just drove as hard as I could straight at the rim because I was like, I'm going to make something happen. I'm not going to get yelled at for holding the ball again. And a help defender rotated and I slipped it right by his head to Dewey, who was standing right under the basket for a layup. So just coming in and being able to not just play on the court, in the big boy leagues, but to make some type of impact in the score sheet by setting up my teammate, and especially like a teammate like Dewey, who's one of the greatest I've ever had, and our history on the JV team. But just making an impact in any way was a special feeling for sure, especially that first time.
That's awesome, dude.
2 boards and 1 assist, dude. His plus minus. I'd like to see the plus minus on it for that game.
I think I looked. I think I looked, and I was leading the country in per 40-minute stats. I think.
That's so good.
See, dude,
This dude's a
that's
legend,
awesome.
bro. This dude's an absolute legend, bro. That's wild. I love that.
So first year with Hubert Davis, I mean, it can't go without talking, like getting your thoughts. The run at the end of the season, starting with the Cameron Indoor game. What is that like? The energy within the locker room, the belief. Because I don't think nobody gave you a snowball's chance in where when you go into Durham that March, early in March.
Yeah. Nobody thought we were going to win that game, especially the way that the home game unfolded, where I think the final score was maybe like a 20-point loss, but it felt like a lot more because they jumped out to a huge lead. They deflated us. Like the energy was taken out of the Dean Dome. So especially with the way that game went, I think everybody had sort of written us off for the game at Cameron, especially given all the hype. They were number 4 in the country. I think they had, 4 first rounders and a second rounder in their starting lineup. It's Coach K's last game at home. So there are all these things pointed against us. But honestly, I think that gave us a sense of belief. Like, okay, if nobody's going to believe in us, I know, 18 guys in here, 17, 18 guys who we're marching over there and we're going to win. So I think everybody in the locker room, we felt like we could beat them, even if nobody else did. And I think that's all we needed. And I've always sort of had that mentality for road games. Like in high school, my best games were always on the road. It was sort of a us against the world mentality, and that was certainly the case here. But to your point, like that's what started it all. That's what started the run. I think we were sort of on the bubble leading into that game, and maybe we would make it if we didn't win that game. But I think that game really did solidify our spot, and more than that, it gave us tremendous chemistry going into March. That's when the Iron Five, as everybody called them, started hitting their stride. Any of them were capable of going off for 20 in a game. Mondo was good for a double-double, what felt like every single game. But it was really that spark plug to what I call the best month of my life, which was that run.
Dude, what was did you guys feel super disrespected that entire week, considering everything we were just talking about him? Talk about Coach K, that is.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd say it probably wasn't as like amplified for us because it's not like we weren't aware of the stakes of the game, but we were pretty much treating it like just another game. Like that's how you sort of have to go into it to take the external factors and the media and the hype out of it. So we were dead set on that game. So we weren't as privy to as much of the hype that was out there, but we knew that all the focus was on them. You know, they were flying in 100 former players, and tickets were going for 50,000 a pop, and Adam Silver was in the building, and Seinfeld was in the building, like all these celebrities. So we were aware of that, but I think that almost added to the okay, like you wanna set this up, you wanna set this farewell tour up, like go ahead. I think we're gonna come in and kick your butt. So I think it was just more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, one of my colleagues was running his mouth the entire week that week, and he's like, "You want to bet on the game?" And I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, "No, this I'm not. This is like I'm not. This is free money for you. Like, absolutely not." But he just kept running his mouth like, "Oh, UNC, blah blah blah." His his like he's like, "I bet you your paycheck that Duke beats UNC by 20." I was like, "Well, you're a retard. I'm not betting my paycheck because I make 3 times more than you because he's a part timer. I'm a full time." He's like, "Well, I'll bet you my paycheck." I was like, "How much is your paycheck?" And he was like, "Well, probably like 250." I was like, "Fuck it, 250." I was like, "You're on." North Carolina's coming into Cameron and dog walking Duke. He's like, "Ain't no way, man." Walking in Monday morning, oh, that dude, that was the greatest feeling. Like he had nothing to say. I looked at him. I was like, "I'll take that paycheck Friday."
That's a good story, yeah.
Oh man, it
Dude,
was so great.
that was so daggum good, man. And watching that, because quite frankly, I remember watching. I was dating a girl that lived about an hour away from where I live, so I would go up there on the weekends. And the weekend that you guys played them at home, I was so mad. And then when the game came back around, I'm like, crap, I was like, because I was like, dude, I want. And then I'll never forget this. I think it was Vince Carter and Jay Williams were on ESPN First Take talking about this game, the last game in Cameron Indoor that's going to have Coach K as the head coach, all this, that, and the other thing. And maybe JJ Redick would pop in from time to time. But I can't remember if this was for that game or if this was for the March Madness, the Final Four game. I can't remember which one it was. But I remember Jay Williams looking at Vince Carter and says, how about make a bet, Vince? If Duke wins, you have to come on here and say Duke is my daddy." And when I heard him say that, I was like, "Oh, I hope North Carolina. I hope Mondo just." Oh my god! And when they won, and they cut to Jay Williams going,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, dude! I'm telling you, son,
Well, and we all know Jay Williams is a secret Carolina fan, so
he is, bro.
yeah,
It's
he
just-
wishes he went to Carolina instead of Duke.
dude, he loves it so much there, bro. He loves it in Carolina so much. He does, man.
I gotta know, where did the cowboy hat idea come from for the March Madness run?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So I can't take credit for it. It was actually Shea Rush, one of the walk-ons before me, who I think made like handmade from scratch hats for the 2017 team. Um, so I think he was a freshman. Yeah, I think he was a freshman that year. And they started, I forget where the first round was played, but they played Texas Southern. And I don't know if I don't know if that was inspiration or if he just makes hats in his free time. But I remember reading an article in high school, like Shea Rush, the walk on, made these hats for the whole team. And they all generally look like cowboy hats. So again, that had been on my radar, just like the JV team was on my radar growing up. And the opening round, the round of 64, round of 32, we were playing in Fort Worth. So we were in Texas, and I actually grew up in Austin when I was a little kid. So it was cool, like coming back to Texas. But I sort of thought about that, and maybe jokingly said it to some of the guys, like, "Yo, we should go get cowboy hats." And then we had like a morning practice one day in the lead up to playing Marquette in the opening round, and I was like, "Why don't we go to Stockyards and just see if we can go find some cowboy hats for the walk-ons? Like that would be sweet if we just showed up with cowboy hats." And so we went down there, and we we were trying to find like a good spot. We didn't want some like $5 plastic hats, but we also didn't want to pay out of our butts for, an overly
1,000,
nice,
2,000. Yeah.
yeah, for a hat that we would wear for potentially a week and forget about. But we found this really good spot called Cavender's in Stockyards, and they had every hat you would ever want or need. And we probably spent an hour, like the four of us, trying to find the right hat for us. And we walked out of there each with our own unique hat, and we were like, okay, we're gonna make this Texas trip a fun time, no matter how long it lasts. Because again, like it was do or die. It was
Right.
win or go home, and so we put them on our heads, walked out of the store, and funny enough, as soon as we walked out on the sidewalk, there was like a TV crew from like the local CBS station, and Creighton Lebo, his mom, Creighton was one of the walk-ons, and she was sort of walking around with us in Stockyards, and we are walking by the reporter, and she asked us like, hey, like can we interview you for the March Madness tournament? And we're looking like idiots with like UNC gear, Jordans, and then cowboy hats on, and obviously we don't like necessarily look like your average Carolina basketball player, so like they didn't know we were on the team, and they start interviewing us, and that's when Creighton's mom was like, like they're on the team, right? Like they play for the team, and that was pretty funny because her whole sort of demeanor changed and started asking us about different things. But turns out we were like on the local news at like 10 o'clock that night, and we come in for team dinner later, and we're all wearing our hats like at the walk-on table, and we have like our hats, and everybody's getting a kick out of it. And then Coach Davis comes in, and he like stops in his tracks, and he's like, did I just see you guys on TV? And it was a pretty good moment because we were just like, I can try and send you guys a clip, but it was just a goofy moment, but it was part of the experience.
How do, Coach? How do?
Yeah. Howdy.
And that's so awesome.
And what's crazy, dude, is so much. There was so much. Just I like to describe it as just magic throughout that entire March Madness run that you guys had. I mean, you come in, you beat Marquette, then you take on Baylor, and a guy who got on my nerves throughout the entire game was Sochan for Baylor. Could not stand that dude. He kept falling on the floor and things of it was just horrible. And then you had
Brady
UCLA.
cooked that game.
They did.
Oh,
and then
God.
UCLA, then St. Peter's, which was the Cinderella team that year, and then you get Duke. Talk about the whole March Madness run as you guys are knocking out these teams, and you get closer and closer, and you see the two superpowers coming. Was that something that was talked about between you guys consistently? Like, hey, this is like something's getting ready to happen here.
Yeah, I'd say we talked about it here and there, and it was never like can you imagine if or like what if, but it was more like, okay, what's Duke doing? Because we knew they were on the same side of the bracket as we were, and they had some good teams that they played, but I think we had definitely a much more challenging path. But I think again, it sort of goes back to like, and this was the difference that I didn't really anticipate coming in, but as a kid growing up, or even when I was in high school making brackets, like I'm looking at the whole bracket, not just Carolina. Obviously, like most of my brackets had Carolina winning, but I'm looking at the whole bracket. I'm watching a bunch of games. But once we were in it, it was really like, let's take our 4-team mini bracket within the quadrant, within the bracket, and we're only focusing on that. So we were pretty glued in to only our next game. Maybe the game after that. Like obviously when we played Marquette, we knew that if we won, we would be playing the defending champs in Baylor. But I'd say for the most part, we were pretty glued in on just the game immediately in front of us, especially UCLA. Like getting past them, that was a very tough game. But I do think because I think Duke played before us, before the St. Peter's game. So we knew coming into the St. Peter's game, if we win this game, we're going to be in the Final Four and we're going to be playing Duke. So there was definitely a celebration, of course, for winning the region, cutting down the nets, getting a hat, getting a shirt, getting to the Final Four, which had been our goal. But But at the same time, I was like, okay, like next Saturday it is going down for real. In no other way that like you couldn't have written it any better. And that week,
I get cold just thinking about it.
and that week leading up to it was something else. Like again, it felt like this this fairy tale type of ending, and it felt. I like to use the word apocalyptic. Like it felt like the world was going to end one way or another that Saturday. Like we're either going to have bragging rights or not. We're either going to make history or we're going to be on the receiving end of it. So it was we were always cognizant of where Duke was in the tournament, but up until that St. Peter's game that got us to the Final Four, I think that's when it really started to hit us.
That's wild, dude. That's absolutely wild because
Dude, as a fan, I couldn't imagine being on the bench as a player, and you and it's true. Like the players, like fans live and die on it, and after a loss, you're like, the fans are mad, but you got to tell like people, you got to tell people, look, you might be upset, but think about the players. They bleed on that floor. There's nobody that's more upset than the players. And it's just wild as a fan experience. That 1 month, that March, dude, it was a fever dream. It was just
every
wild.
single video that during that week, the second that the buzzer sounded and we knew it's going to be North Carolina taking on Duke in the Final Four, the Coach K last ride, we just embarrassed them in their own building. Oh my gosh, if we lose this game, more than likely they're winning the national championship game. What in the world do we? But also, if we win this game, oh my God, we're in the national championship game and we get bragging rights. And oh my gosh, we have a chance to sum it up big time against them. Oh my gosh. Every video that was on YouTube, I didn't care if I didn't care the production quality, anything. I don't care if it was just some random old guy talking about. I just wanted to listen to it because I was so personally nervous. Me and Alan talked because before we did this this channel, we were both UPS drivers. He still is. I'm not anymore, but we would drive down the road and we'd be doing our deliveries and everything. But we'd be talking on the phone about this stuff all week long, and it just gets to a point where it's just like, golly, it's like Tuesday, and like, man, can Saturday get here already, man? We have to like done talk this thing out, man. And it was nerve-wracking for us. But what was that game like? The build up, the hype, that week of practice? What was the message to you guys? And how many times did Hubert Davis say the word fart in the post game or during the game in the halftime? What was that like?
Yeah, it was unlike anything else. Like I don't think you'll ever sort of get a week of hype and build up like that ever again. And if so, it's going to be a long time from now. And usually with that much anticipation, that much excitement, that many nerves leading into a game, usually the game tends to let down a little bit, whether it's, Bama, Georgia in football or UNC Duke, like in a regular season game. Like usually the hype just doesn't lead up to the actual product itself. And that's what the business is built around, like all these hypotheticals. But this was like the very opposite. Like somehow the game itself matched the hype that led into it. And I mentioned this in the book, but I think the first 10 field goals of the game were either a dunk or a three on both sides. And it was
Haymakers.
it was Duke punches a dunk, RJ hits a three, Bancaro like dunks it in transition, Mondo gets a dunk. Like it truly was a back and forth from the get go. And honestly, I think when we came out throwing punches, obviously they were throwing punches too, but I think when came out throwing punches, I was like, okay, we have a real shot here if we can just keep this thing going. But that's probably the one thing that stuck out to me. Like it somehow met the hype that was leading into it. I'd say the emotions like leading into the game itself on our side was very much we were keeping the same mentality of like we're just focusing on the game right in front of us. It's just another game, even though it wasn't. But in terms of like the preparation and everything, we treated it just like another game. And given we'd played them twice, we knew them well. We knew that they wanted to push and transition even after a made bucket. Most of their action went through Banchero. We knew the tendencies of all their other players. So we had a pretty good sense of like how we could beat them, especially with all the film that we had from the game at Cameron. So we were very well set up from like a strategic point of view. But obviously, a game like that, the stakes are that high. You really can't plan for everything. Like at the end of the day, you're just gonna have to go out there and make plays. But I do think the emotions leading up to the game were very much confident. We were pretty juiced up. And as soon as the game started, it was like, this is it. This is we're playing like our lives depend on it. And I wasn't honestly that nervous until a few hours before tip when I made the mistake of turning on the TV and I saw two ESPN anchors, speaking live from the Superdome where we had just gotten back from shooting around, and they were pitting us against each other like the world was going to end. And that's when I started getting nervous. But I'd say the game itself, that's when it really went down.
It felt like real quick. I felt like the game was the summation of the history between the two teams. The way the haymaker, they came out punching, they came out fighting. It was a dog fight to the end, and that's Carolina Duke. Now,
Yeah, the two most iconic moments in that game for me, one of them you really don't know about, and that's, well, everybody knows about it, but unless you was really paying attention, it's the three that Brady hit and then looks at Banchero and says, "Bang bang, motherfucker," and then it's Mondo after he rolls his ankle, and the entire stadium's just like, the air goes out of the entire place, and you're like, oh, not like this. But then he comes back, and I think it might have been Caleb that on the TV, it looked like Caleb looked at him and said, "You good?" And Mondo's just like, "Fuck it." And
I loved it.
as soon as I read his lips and he said that, I was like, "Punch the ticket. We're going to the Natty." And as soon as Mondo was like, "Fuck it," I was like, "We're winning this. No point. There's no way we don't win this game."
Yeah,
that was dude. That was whew. That's
yeah. I
just
mean, you can't understate how gritty and tough the Iron Five were. I mean, that year they played so many minutes. They carried so much of the point production and the scoring production from the team as a whole. Like those guys were durable for most of the season, and then unfortunately, he turned his ankle pretty bad. But again, that mentality of like, screw it, like this might be bad for me for the long term, but like we got to win this game. I think that's what sort of fueled us all. And I think Brady's mentality of hitting that shot and letting that one rip, that's the type of fiery attitude that we needed to have, especially to beat a team like Duke. But yeah, those two moments stand out. And then also there was a stretch where Caleb, I think he scored like, or maybe Brady and Caleb scored like 12 in a row or something, and totally flipped the game on its head. Like I think we were down like 7, and I think we ended up 6 at one point in that game. And I think that was a huge stretch where like we were getting stops, we were running in transition, we were getting high quality looks. And at the end of the day, Caleb was just hitting some big time shots.
Talk about for you though, when the Caleb 3 hit, what is your reaction? See the look.
So I was so this is actually, I haven't mentioned this. I was like behind the bench. I was right behind the bench because this is like a walk-on problem, a historic walk-on problem. We essentially like draw straws for who will be behind the bench. And given Rob and I were the new guys that year, we were right behind the bench. So we weren't dressed out, which actually surprisingly made like a pretty big mental difference. Like even though we were basically right there, like you feel less like if I was on the bench and not playing, I still felt like I was more useful and could impact the outcome more than even if I was just like right behind it, which is
Yeah.
weird. So I was a little bit more nervous than like a typical game. And I remember I'm a superstitious guy. I think everybody who's a fan is, but every time I was standing up when we had the ball on offense, we didn't score or something bad happened. And so my butt was actually planted in my seat when I was watching Caleb come across half court with the ball. And as you can imagine, with like 30 seconds left or whatever it was, the whole stadium was standing up and the bench was standing up. Everybody around me was standing up. And I'm like leaning, trying to like see
Oh,
him
no.
through everybody. But I'm like committed to keeping my butt in my seat. And I see him sort of come off the screen and he sort of disappears from my view. And I like find him again and he's rising up to shoot. And it's almost like it was in slow motion. And I like watched the ball. And as soon as I see it go in, I jumped out of my seat so high. Like I probably set a PR for my vertical jump.
I did too, brother.
Because in that
I
moment,
ran through the
yeah,
house.
because we were up one and it put it to a 2-point or 2-possession game. And I think in that moment, I was like, okay, like we are actually in a position to win this ball game. Because literally up until that point, it was anybody's game. Like, let's be real. Like, I think the possession before, or maybe a couple of possessions before, they had missed the three, but they had gotten the offensive rebound, and then Wendell Moore hit a three at the top of the key. And at that point, I think we were down one maybe, and I had this sinking feeling like, dang, like that could have been it. But as soon as Caleb hit that three, I was like, okay, like we could actually win this thing. And fortunately we did. But I think the emotion was just like, I mean, I was sweating. I was getting a workout in just watching. I think, all of us were. But it was a big time shot, big time moment. And I think that's what Caleb left as his legacy at UNC.
But no, man, that's an amazing story, dude. And you got to live. The thing about it is, dude, is your dream in this book. When it talks about dream on, you got to live out your childhood dream, yes, but you got to live out your childhood dream in the most craziest of times as a North Carolina fan and as a player on this team. You got to witness this stuff, man. And I'm curious to, with all of your stories, and I really want to push people to go read this book. And all the information will be in the description of how to get their pre-order and everything for this book. That way you guys can get this thing. Tell me what, if you have a message that you would like to give people, and maybe a younger version of yourself, or a kid coming to you for advice that may be kind of starting out and they have big dreams and big goals. What is your message to them?
Yeah, and I think this is the core message of the book, is to chase that dream like anything's possible. I certainly didn't know that I would be able to walk on one day at UNC, but I always moved and approached life with the thought that it could. A lot of things seem impossible, but if you just break it into baby steps and tell people your goals, I like to say, nobody's going to assume your aspirations. So, I was telling people I wanted to walk on. I was asking people how I could get there, asking what it would take. But I would say, like, whatever dream that is, keep chasing it. And I think if you approach life with a mentality of, I can do anything, I think you'll end up, even if you don't achieve that dream, you'll end up a better person through it. And I think that's one of the messages that, we lost that Kansas game. There's no getting around it. I would have given anything to win that game. But I think that put into perspective, win or lose, if you make a shot or you miss a shot, if you turn the ball over, if you don't, I think at the end of the day, it's who you're with, the experiences you have, and the journey. That is the most important thing. So I'd say, anybody out there with a dream on, keep chasing it. And you really have no idea what can happen when you approach it with grit, hard work, and perseverance and a little luck. So that's my message.
That's amazing.
That's a good one, man. That's a good one.
Absolutely amazing, man.
Got me fired up right there.
Yeah, dude, I'm ready to run the Tiger. Let's go, bro. Come on. What is Jackson Watkins up to these days, man? because you're an author now, but you also said you was getting into some business. You do a lot of travel. We found out. I mean, what is Jackson up to these days?
Yeah. I'm working in finance. So I live in New York City now. Been up here since I graduated, so 2.5 years almost. And I'm working in investment banking. So I'm helping buy and sell companies, which is fun. Learn a lot. Not quite as fun as playing basketball for 5 or 6 hours a day, but no, it's good. It's a great learning experience. The people I'm around, make it worth it. Just to the point I was just making, the people you're around to keep you driven, keep you curious. Those are some of the most important things when it comes to a job. So, yeah, living it up in the big city, but definitely got my roots set in Chapel Hill. So I make it back pretty often.
Oh, good. I was wondering how consistent you made it back. Where can everybody go find this book at, and what is the release date for it?
Yeah, so don't have a specific release date in terms of like when I will ship it out. I'm actually waiting on a physical copy just to make sure the sample is good. But after that, I'll start shipping it out. But you can go buy it or go pre-order it now on Shopify, which I believe the link will be below, and also
Yes.
the link will be sort of in my bios across social media. So go check that out, and then once I start shipping those out, it'll be available on Amazon. So I'll keep you posted with that once it's officially up.
Absolutely, and we'll keep everybody updated as well over here on the Hill Brothers as well. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Jackson Watkins 30 on Instagram. And then my Twitter handle is to be determined. I think it's jwatkins_30, but don't quote me on that.
Is the 30 your favorite number? Is it like an influence? Because like I saw in the book, it says like there was a quote there. I think it was a thought you were thinking like, "What am I, Steph Curry or something like that?" Is there some type of influence?
Yeah. So it was my jersey number, and I chose it because Steph was. I mean, he still is, but he was my favorite player growing up, and he was a huge inspiration behind my game and work ethic. And honestly, I think there are a lot of parallels between, he was undersized, he was overlooked, not just out of high school, but also after Davidson. Like, I think underrated is sort of his mentality. And obviously, he's the greatest shooter of all time. So when I was choosing my jersey number, I definitely picked that because of him. So that's why it's incorporated in my social media and whatnot.
That's awesome, dude. That's absolutely awesome, man.
That's awesome.
Jackson, brother, we absolutely.
Is there an Audible version?
There is not currently. There might be in the future.
Are you going to read it?
That's to be determined. I'll come back to you on that one.
That would be fun. I ain't gonna lie, that would be
fun.
Jackson, you would hear the smile come through the audio, like when he gets like all these parts of the books. Oh, dude, that would be great.
That would be. That's a good idea. Yeah,
awesome, bro. Awesome, man. Well, dude, Jackson, we absolutely appreciate you, man. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Carolina fans, and for people across the entire world, man. For them to be able to read this book and get a hold of it, and it's a source of inspiration, a source of crazy stories, of fun times, and of hard work and work ethic. And that's really what to me shines through this whole thing is the perseverance, like you were talking about. When you have a dream, to go at it with everything that you got and screw it. You never know what might end up happening here. And for you got to go from backyard to Biscuits, from playing high school ball to being in some of the biggest games in college basketball history there, being able to live those. It's amazing, dude, to see, man. And I appreciate you taking the time with us, coming out here and talking and giving us a little bit of a preview of this book and the stories that you guys have. It's amazing, dude. So thank you very much, man, for coming out here, brother.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate it. It was a great time, great conversation, and really appreciate all the kind words. I'll be sure to get y'all a few copies.
Dude,
thanks, man.
And when
Appreciate
the book comes out, we'll be giving one away when the book comes out as well. So you guys somebody out there can get a copy as well, man. I really want to push this thing for you, man, as best that we possibly can here. And dude, I think people are going to love this. I think people are going to enjoy it. sitting down with us, gives just everybody a little bit of a taste of what's to come when you actually are able to get and read these full stories that he has in his journey for yourself. It's going to be awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And the little bit of snippets I've been able to read, I have been very invested in. So I'm excited to be able to get this full thing for myself, dude. So all of his stuff will be down in the description below, all of his socials, where you can go on his Shopify to go pre-order the book. And be sure and go follow him. Go get you a copy pre-ordered. That way it is ready. And put down in the comments that you want to hear audible version by Jackson Watkins himself, man. Do that. Give this man some love. Go give him the follows. And stay tuned for this book as it comes out. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Jackson, again, appreciate you too, buddy. And as always, go Heels.
Go Heels.